Hello and welcome to my review for Mute, the new Netflix movie that came out last week, directed by Duncan Jones, who also directed films like Moon, Source Code, and Warcraft, which I haven't seen. I've only seen Moon, I think, of his films, but Moon is a great sci-fi film starring Sam Rockwell, who is great in almost everything, but that's a film where he really is front and center in a lot of ways, and this film, Mute, actually has kind of a tie-in with that movie, which I kind of enjoyed and wanted more from. See, I knew that Sam Rockwell was going to be in Mute, but I thought it was as a main character. That's not the case, so I was kind of waiting for him, and then when he turned up I was like, and then we don't see him again. So that was a bit of a disappointment. But I was really anticipating this film because I'd listened to Duncan Jones on the Nerdist podcast talking about this kind of passion project, Mute, about this mute man living in this kind of futuristic kind of science fiction infused Berlin, which is where they shot the film as well, I believe. And I was really excited about the idea of it, just the concept and how passionate he sounded about it, and coming off this big studio movie, Warcraft, and then getting to do this film that he'd wanted to do for, I think, 10 years or something. You know, proper, again, passion project. And I was so excited for this to come out on Netflix, like, wow, I'm going to get to instantly see it, and then I just didn't get around to seeing it for the first couple of days, and then the reviews started coming in. And I hate to kind of have other people's opinions colour the kind of anticipation, but it's impossible when people are saying how shit it is. People are saying they're falling asleep watching it. It's boring, it's dull, it's, you know, just a complete misfire. So I watched it maybe 5 or 6 days after it came out and was kind of dreading it in a way. And I really wish that hadn't been the case. I should have watched it straight away, but I just didn't have the time. So, Mute, again, is set in Berlin in this kind of futuristic kind of very Blade Runner-esque world, although we do see kind of areas outside of Berlin, and they're very much not like that. So it's not like it's completely taken over by neon and all this kind of stuff, but when you're in Berlin, very much feels like Blade Runner Los Angeles, I have to say. Which, I don't know how I feel about that, because I love that aesthetic, I love that visual look, but it does feel like, especially in the first 5-10 minutes, I was like, this is Blade Runner. And then they get into flying cars, and I'm like, oh my god. Like, it felt too much to me. It felt too similar to Blade Runner. You know, there's homaging, there's taking kind of visual cues from, and then there's kind of straight up just taking and placing in your own movie. I kind of feel like, again, as much as I love the aesthetic of the way it looks, take something like the Total Recall remake, which I kind of quite liked. Nowhere near as good as the original, but they had a little bit of that. A little bit of the kind of the Asian culture coming in, and then the neon, but it was in its own different style, and I think it worked. The world that was portrayed in that movie. Anyway, Mute follows a guy called Leo, played by Alexander Skarsgård, who, as a child, was raised Amish and got into an accident in a river. I think it seems like he got his throat caught in the propellers of a boat or something, and his mother refuses him to have treatment to save his voice because it's not the Amish way. So he is mute. Some people have brought this up quite rightly. He's a mute kind of, well, I guess the mute part doesn't matter, but he's Amish, yet he works in a bar as a bartender. But I suppose if you think about it, we haven't seen anything from him as a child and then him as an adult, so you could assume that he's moved past this Amish lifestyle and has kind of, you know, rejected that, but then surely then he would have had his voice fixed. So I'm not quite sure about that element of it. There's a scene where he's with his girlfriend, Nadira, and they're kind of in this garage, and the opening is out into the street, and they start kissing and stuff, and then they're taking their clothes off to have sex on this bench, and the doors are still wide open, and I'm like, why are they doing this? Like, I don't understand. Like, just shut the door, or have a scene of them shutting the door. It just felt kind of a little bit too, I don't know, I don't want to say unrealistic in a film like this, but that was a weird beat that just kind of took me out of the movie. Like, why are they just starting to have sex when the door's open, there's people walking past? Especially a guy like Leo, who's very kind of sensitive and, you know, and delicate and caring, even though later on he becomes a bit more kind of physical because of the nature of the story. The story is kind of film noir. It's this, you know, this dark tale of, you know, a mystery. And the mystery is Leo's girlfriend, Nadira, who disappears. And I really like the scenes with them together. A lot of people are saying, oh, she was terrible and their relationship was awful. I really bought into it. I bought that they had this love, this connection, but they hadn't been together that long, and that it was like that kind of, that golden period at the beginning of a relationship where you're just so in love with the other person, you know, you're kind of blinded a little bit by it. And then she disappears. You know, she needed to tell him something, but then she doesn't get to say it, and then, you know, the next morning she's gone. And he's basically trying to find her again. Then we cut to two characters, Duck and Cactus, played by Justin Theroux and Paul Rudd. I love Paul Rudd, and he has a lot more to do in this film than I would have expected by the end of it. You know, and I love him, and I always say that most of the best dramatic actors tend to be people who do comedy really well. Jim Carrey, Robin Williams, Tom Hanks, you know, incredible comedic actors who then went on to do incredible dramatic performances. Paul Rudd, I feel like he needed to be something in this film by the end of it, and he wasn't quite there. He was close. He was within batting distance, but there was like a 10% that just wasn't fully hitting the. I don't know. It just it worked for me overall, but I feel like he didn't fully nail it, which was kind of disappointing. And there's this kind of pedophile subplot that was uncomfortable, and I don't know if it really went anywhere. I don't know. But I think just in general, that's just something that I just find really uncomfortable, and I just don't feel like it was confronted in a way that really helped the movie in any way, shape, or form. But you know, certainly it's, you know, dark shit happens in movies, and you know, that's there to be delved into, I suppose. It certainly added to that subplot with Cactus and Duck. Duck and Cactus, who are these two surgeons, military surgeons, who've defected and are hiding out in Berlin. They're trying to get back to America, or at least Cactus is, Paul Rudd's character. He's trying to get back to America, so he has this kind of thing he needs to do to get him and his daughter back. And for like the first hour and 15 minutes, I'm thinking, why are we getting so much of these two other guys and not, you know, the guy who's mute is in the title of the movie? But then you see where those two plots kind of converge towards the end. I really liked how that worked. But by the end, this film gets really heavy, like more heavy than I was expecting. Like, it really ripped my heart out at one point, and I was just like, fucking hell. To the point where for the last 15 minutes, I was kind of like, I'm done. I'm just so kind of affected by what just happened, you know. Again, it's a dark movie, you know. Dominic Monaghan is in the film, who played Merry in the Lord of the Rings films, and he posted on Instagram, "Go see Mute, it's really fun." Someone commented, "This is anything but fun," and I said, yeah, you beat me to it. This is not a fun movie. It's a dark movie, and an unsettling one by the end. I liked some of the design details of the world and stuff, how you could order, you know, fast food to your phone number and it would track it and deliver it to you with like a flying drone. Feels like that's probably going to be on the, you know, in the next 10-20 years maybe. You know, but ultimately the design of the world, even though I liked it and I liked the gritty kind of feel of it and the very diverse nature of all the characters that we see in the film, but just again, it felt a little bit too derivative of a world like Blade Runner. You know, it's just impossible not to draw that comparison. And again, by the end, I was just so like, you know, hit in the gut with it. But by the end of the film, I realized what it was kind of about and what it was trying to get across, and it really moved me. So if you were to ask me at the end of the film when the credits rolled, what would I rate the film? I'd say like a 4.5 out of 5. Then when I kind of stepped back, looked at the film as a whole in my mind, it's more like a 3. You know, I'm so conflicted about it. I wish we had more of Leo and Nadira, but the nature of the movie is that he has to solve the mystery of where she is and what happened to her. And the answers that you find in the film, you know, I like that they were different, but it was almost too unsatisfactory to me as someone who started to care about the main character that it just kind of ruined it a little bit for me. I thought Alexander Skarsgård was really good. Heard people trashing his performance and saying he's very bland and stuff, but I read it as someone who just has not really had a normal life. He really came across as, and there's a moment in the film where he gets so emotional, it builds up to this breaking point and he just screams, but he can't scream. I thought that was incredibly effective. There's a lot of really good things about this film. I just feel like there's some elements that were holding it back a little bit. I don't know. But I like the idea that it got made. You know, there's people saying, oh, this is a perfect example of why Netflix shouldn't be taking on directors who have complete creative control. You know, I don't know. You know, this is the movie he wanted to make. He posted, when Duncan Jones, the director, when the movie was released on Netflix, he posted a picture of a Marmite jar with Mute on it. You're either going to love it or you're going to hate it. It's a divisive movie. It's like 11% on Rotten Tomatoes. Not that I see that as any mark of quality, but overall, this film really isn't, you know, been received well. A lot of people thought that it was awful. Some people said it was vile. Some people said it was a disgrace. You know, some people said that it's just an insult to movies. You know, you're taking it too far there. And it is slow as well. It takes its time. But I really got drawn into the story and the mystery. But I really feel like this movie, for me, is going to live or die, as far as my opinion on it is concerned, with the next time I watch it, which I don't know when that'll be, but I feel like now that I know everything that happens, it's going to be a different movie. With mystery movies, they always are different the second time you watch them because you know what's going to happen, so you can view things differently. And that Paul Rudd, Justin Theroux side plot is certainly going to be different when you see it for the second time. So overall, I think it is a worthwhile movie. And I did really enjoy it, but there's some things that are kind of holding it back. For now on Letterboxd, I just threw it down as a 4 out of 5, because I just don't know where I fall as far as rating it or whatever, but... You know, it's not in my top 10 of the year so far, but it's close. I don't know. Maybe it would be. I'm not too sure, actually, but it's just... It's a conflicting one, but I like how it challenged me, and I like how it wasn't clear-cut. And it is one I will watch again, because I'm intrigued to see how it's going to hold up and how it's going to change with the second viewing. So that's my thoughts on Mute. It's a hard one to pin down. I can't give you this cast-iron kind of, it was great or it sucked, because it's neither of those things. But it's not as simple as some people are making it out to be, I don't think. But that's just my opinion. And that's what you're here for, hopefully. So thank you for watching. Leave your thoughts down below on Mute if you've seen it. And I'll see you in the next video.
It's alright by me. Apart from the fact he throws cans of Carlin into a tree. Yeah, he's really cool. Yeah, he's really cool. But he's not quite as cool as you.